This is the case of the murder of Jason Green. This case is to be presented to the District Attorney's Office of Allegheny County. Those involved with this case are lead investigator Jordan Matthews, crime scene investigators Officer Lisa Carter and Officer Philip Hughes. The coroner for this case is Dr. Rebecca Simmons. The first responder was Officer Rachel Green. The forensic photographer is Tyler Evans, and the forensic examiner is Megan Wallace. The murder of Jason Green occurred at his residence front doorstep at 34 Willow Lane, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15212. The body was discovered on December 30th, 2024 at 7:45 p.m. The weather conditions at the time of discovery were clear skies with a tiny breeze, and it was after dark. The first responder determined nothing had been moved on the scene prior to her arrival. Upon her arrival, Officer Rachel Green secured the crime scene and took note of what she saw. The notes included the victim lying face down on the doorsteps, broken mason jar with the bloodstain, a sneaker, and a knocked-over lawn chair. When backup arrived on the scene, further observations of the victim were made. The victim was laying face down in a pool of blood on his front doorsteps. There was visible bruising on the back of his head, and there was a wallet found in his pocket that was used for positive identification. There was also measurements made for distance. The knocked over chair was approximately 4 feet from the body. The sneaker was about 12 feet from the body, pointed towards the woods, and the broken mason jar laid about 2 feet from the body. The first photo on the slide shows the victim face down in a pool of blood, the mason jar about 2 feet to his right, and the folded chair lies 2 more feet farther to the right. In the second photo, the sneaker is visible not far from his right foot. In the rough sketch of the crime scene, the evidence can be seen in the position relevant to the house door, windows, and the shared driveway. Each piece of evidence is represented by a letter. A is the door, B is the window, C is the victim, D is the pool of blood, E is the mason jar, F is the lawn chair, G is the shared driveway with the neighbors, H is the sidewalk, and I is the sneaker. This sketch was done by lead investigator Detective Jordan Matthews at approximately 8:30 p.m. when he arrived on the scene. The first piece of evidence was the broken mason jar. The mason jar was marked as a 473 milliliter jar and was collected by Officer Lisa Carter on December 30th, 2024 at 8:15 p.m. The jar was found located 2 feet from the victim's head and 2 feet from the knocked over chair. The jar was photographed by close-up shots for detail of breakage and bloodstain along with overall shots of the scene. It was also labeled and placed into a paper bag for evidence. Further analyzation of the mason jar included examination of glass fragments under a polarized light to determine reflective index. There was also a blood test ran on the bloodstain that came back as a match for the victim's blood. The second piece of evidence was a shoe that was left behind on the scene. The shoe was collected by Taylor Evans by photographs on December 30th, 2024 at 8:30 p.m. The shoe was found leading away from the victim towards a wooded area. It was photographed in its original position using gloves and was placed into an appropriate sized evidence bag. Further analyzation of the shoe was conducted by examination under a microscope for dirt, grass, and other materials. It was also swabbed for DNA and dusted for fingerprints. The sneaker turned out to be a match to the second suspect. The next piece of evidence is a knocked over chair. The chair was folded and laid on the ground approximately 4 feet from the victim's head and 2 feet from the mason jar. The chair was collected by Taylor Evans by photograph on December 30th, 2024 at 8:30 p.m. It was photographed in its original position, dusted for fingerprints, and carefully bagged for transportation. Further analyzation of the chair included a fingerprint analysis being performed to identify potential matches. The chair was also examined for signs of force or impact, along with fibers and DNA swabs being collected from the chair's surface. The fingerprint analysis came back as a match with the victim's prints and the third suspect's prints. The fourth piece of evidence is the pool of blood. The pool was found directly beneath the victim's head and spread approximately 12 inches in diameter on the patio surface. The blood pool was collected by Officer Lisa Carter on December 30th, 2024 at 8:30 p.m. The blood was photographed from multiple angles, up close and overhead. Swabs were also taken from the blood for DNA testing to confirm its origin. Further analysis showed that the blood matched the victim's blood, type A. The blood was also tested for foreign substances, along with the shape of the blood pool was also analyzed to determine the direction of the fall and the approximate time of bleeding. The victim is Jason Green, who moved to town 2 years ago for job opportunities. He was 22 years old, 6 feet tall, male, with black hair and brown eyes. His occupation was a local electrician, often worked the same job sites as his roommate. His alcohol level tested to be 0.36% on the night of his death. Coworkers normally describe him as outgoing and overwhelming. He is also known to have disputes with neighbors over property boundaries. The first suspect is Mark Ellis. He is 6 foot tall, male, 160 pounds, brown hair, and green eyes. His occupation is a real estate agent. He has also been the victim's neighbor for the past 2 years. He has a history of conflicts with neighbors over property boundaries and landscapes. He is also known for his temper during those disputes, but has no prior record. Before the victim's death, the two of them had a heated argument over a fence. He claims that he was at the gym during the incident, but has no witness to confirm his alibi. The second suspect is Sarah Parker. She is a 29-year-old female, 125 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. Her occupation is a freelance graphic designer. She is an acquaintance with the victim and has allegedly loaned him a sum of money 6 months prior, which he had not repaid. She was known to have financial struggles and was described as quiet and introverted, but was overheard arguing with the victim at a social gathering 2 weeks before the incident. She claims she was working at home during the time of the incident, but has no witness to back up her alibi. The third suspect was the victim's roommate, Porter Brown. He is 5'11", male, 175 pounds, and has blonde hair and green eyes. His occupation is a local carpenter, and he often worked the same job sites as the victim. He is also known for his volunteer work at retirement homes, but also has 5 points on his driver's license for speeding and has a past history with drugs. He claims he was out of town visiting family during the incident. His alibi is backed up by plane tickets and selfies with family posted on his mom's Facebook. The first responder on the scene was Officer Rachel Green. She was on patrol in the area when a 911 call came in around 7:40 p.m., reporting loud arguing and a possible altercation near the victim's home. She arrived on the scene at 7:45 p.m. and reported that she found the victim face down in a pool of blood outside of his door. She secured the scene and called for backup. The only witness to the crime was Emily Dawson, 62-year-old, 4'9" female, gray hair and blue eyes. She lives directly across the street from the victim and is a retired school teacher. She called 911 and claimed she didn't see anyone but wanted to report loud arguing and a possible altercation at the house across the street. She mentioned hearing a loud crash followed by silence. The coroner's summary came back with results saying that there was significant trauma to the back of the head of the victim, and the cause of death was blunt force trauma, and there were small glass fragments embedded in the victim's scalp wounds.